In the 90s, two archaeologists heard stories from local ranchers of a site that had deer scapulae with geometric lines and designs painted in red ochre that have been appearing in private collections. They were found to originate south from the Texas-Mexican border, following the Sierra Encantada mountain range in the state of Coahuila, to a cave by the name of Cueva Pilote. The location of this cave was not a coincidence, as will be mentioned later in the film, when we look at how this placement reflects what it was used for. Well hidden on the side of a mountain, only able to be seen from a small vantage point on the bottom. The darkness of the inside of the cave and the light outside was very noticeable. This, combined with the artifacts found within it, suggested that it was used to conduct rituals. Radiocarbon dating was conducted on some charcoal found next to the ritualistic material, and it was found these items were used from 1305 to 1410 AD. When the archaeologists began digging, they uncovered 2 complete and 3 fragments of deer scapulae, the same artifact that had originally begun their search for their origins. All that had been found were painted red with geometric, crosshatch, and or perpendicular lines on either one or both sides of the bone. Only one painted in black. No design is the same. They also found smooth stones with ochre, suggesting that the scapulae may have been painted inside the cave. 2 other sites have produced these painted deer scapulae, both in the Big Bend region of Texas. One of them, with its unusual zigzags and lines, has a quadruped, presumably a bighorn sheep, painted on as well. Deer remains are central in the material culture of the region and appear in the pictographs and petroglyphs of the area. Antler headdresses are also depicted on rock art and have even been found at some sites in Coahuila. The scapulae in the private collections showed evidence of being smooth, suggesting they were strung with cords and may have been used as musical instruments, as rattles or rasps. This theory has been suggested as the Kachina dancers of Voices America have a similar rattle made of deer scapulae and painted, whose rhythm is meant to induce or accompany hypnotic sounds. Other bones found include those of a bear and also human remains, consisting only of small fragments of an infant's finger bone. Shell beads, as well as mussel shells that were shaped and braided into diamond-esque shapes, the latter probably being preforms for the beads that were found. Due to the whole of the beads being off-center, resembling strands attached to the rattles found in the cave sites of Coahuila, they may have served a similar purpose. The origins of the shells show how interconnected the peoples who used Cueva Pilote were, as some of the shell beads came from the Gulf of Mexico and the mussels from rivers south of the cave. Most notable alongside the deer scapulae, when excavating, archaeologists uncovered many objects made from plant parts. These include 2 agave fiber pads, 20 centimeters or 8 inches long, 7 to 9 centimeters wide, and 8 millimeters in thickness. Many agave spines were also sieved through. These were collected and later tested positive for human blood. Similar agave needles have been found in the Cueva de la Candelaria, where they were placed in what were called guardapuas, or spine cases. Fragments of a domesticated gourd were also discovered. Due to being found alongside other bloodletting items, it may have served as some collection base in the rituals, or as some have theorized, it was used as a sound amplifier. Paired with deer scapulae and shell rattles, due to no evidence of agriculture by the peoples who lived there during the era these artifacts were made, it's believed they either were traded from an area that did farm the gourds, such as La Huasteca, southeast of the cave on the coast, even though casual cultivation of the crop can't be deduced. There isn't much evidence of the peoples of the area growing anything like a gourd. It is no surprise then that just like many of these items, gourds have also been found in La Cueva de la Candelaria, a dipper repaired with a piece of thread, and an elaborately incised gourd that had its origins in Mesoamerica. Perhaps noble to mention before going off into the ritualistic importance of Cueva Pilote, the last type of artifacts predate those that have been mentioned. A cache of spear thrower dart points were uncovered and were believed to have been placed from 2000 to 1000 BC, at least a good 2,500 years before the bloodletting ritual artifacts were deposited. However, it has been speculated that there's a slight chance they themselves found these artifacts and placed them within the cave. This placement is what baffled the archaeologists, noting a lithic at either end of the entrance of the cave, pointing towards one another. The previously mentioned artifacts taken together in context show that there was some sort of bloodletting ritual going on inside the cave, whose location is not a coincidence. It is the embodiment of light and dark, descending into the underworld, and engaging in a ritual that consists of auto-sacrifice and initiation ceremonies that would have consisted of young men. It's believed that the similarities between the rituals here and striking similarities to those in the Mesoamerican tradition that show that there was some sort of overarching tradition of bloodletting with agave spines in ancient North America, and it's interesting to note that the peoples who lived in ancient Coahuila would have been related to the Aztecs, both falling under the category of Chichimeca. One example of Mesoamerican influence is in the use of that certain type of gourd found in Cueva Pilote and other sites, which which was cultivated by Mesoamerican peoples for the purpose of musical resonators. Also important to mention is how agave spines and pads appear in many examples of Mesoamerican art as early as Teotihuacan. It's interesting to think that while the people of Cueva Pilote were bloodletting, Aztec priests and nobility participated in the same tradition, even using similar items. The other artifacts found, such as the deer scapulae, shell beads, and gourds, could have been used as musical instruments, the rhythm putting those engaging in the ritual into a trance while self-mutilating to release the sacred liquid. Bloodletting rituals in indigenous Coahuila do not only appear in the archaeological record, but also in ethnographic accounts by subsequent Europeans. A 1607 account detailed how a bloodletting ritual took place in Mapimi when Halley's Comet was sighted, to avoid any adverse effects its appearance brought with it. Quote, "These Indians believed that many people will die whenever a comet appears, and so it is entertaining to see what some of these old sorcerers, who are also doctors, do. On the first night, after the comet begins to appear, to appease it, and to tell it not to do them harm, they offer it some small baskets filled with fish, fruit, and mesquite beans, a native tree, and other fruits and herbs they eat. They burn them in a bonfire that they have made so that the smoke, once released, will reach up to where the comet appears, and so that the smoke will go straight up without drifting. 4 or 5 old men, with some very white lashes, whip the smoke all over as it begins to rise, and if at this point a strong wind blows it apart and disperses it, they take it as bad omen, and everyone begins to cry at once, and in the meantime they puncture their arms and chests with some thorns until the blood flows, and one of the old men gathers and mixes it with a little water, cuts the hair of a 10 or 11-year-old maiden, and from the hair they make a hyssop with which they sprinkle the air with that blood. As they turn, they let out some very strange snorts that are horrifying to hear." Unquote. There are 3 more accounts describing the same event, varying in some minor details, yet all have the same narrative. The comet is appeased by inserting baskets of food, but when that doesn't work, old male shamans puncture their arms and chests with agave spines. In one account, they use an item called a peine, or comb, and blood collected and diluted with water. Next, the hair of a girl is cut and dipped in the mixture, and it is flailed in all the cardinal directions while crying out, and the remaining liquid is thrown in the fire. Another account by the Spanish explorer Alonso de Leon in the mid-1600s wrote about a bloodletting ceremony amongst the Huasteca, where both sexes danced around a fire, consumed peyote, and would draw blood by scratching themselves with the mouth of a fish, possibly a gar. Due to the evidence found and the many similarities in material culture to other sites in the state of Coahuila, it was concluded that Cueva Pilote belonged to the Jora complex. The conditions of this cave helped preserve evidence of a complex ritual and the belief systems of the indigenous peoples of Coahuila, challenging the narrative that hunter-gatherers lived simple lives, when in fact they had a large material culture they used not only in their daily lives, but also in ceremonies with shared beliefs that also show they were interconnected to the Mesoamerican peoples south of them.